Keir Starmer looks rattled, and Nigel Farage looks like he's enjoying every second of it. While the Reform UK leader laughs, Labour is quietly imploding under Starmer's leadership. Reform UK is now the largest political party in Britain, and Labour's membership base is collapsing at an alarming rate. And no, this isn't spin or speculation. I've seen the internal figures that Starmer desperately hoped would never see the light of day. This isn't just about bad polling. This is about the one thing that truly matters in party politics: paying members. Labour isn't just slipping. It's bleeding support where it hurts most. This isn't an awkward headline. This is a full-blown leadership scandal. And the most shocking part isn't even how many members Labour has lost. It's how Starmer reacted when the truth finally leaked. That explosive meltdown tells you everything you need to know. We'll get to that in a moment. First, let's talk numbers, because the numbers are brutal. According to newly leaked data, Reform UK has officially overtaken Labour to become the largest political party in Britain. Reform is now openly tracking its membership, sitting at over 268,000 members and climbing. Labour, on the other hand, has been hiding its membership figures for months, treating them like state secrets. But the cover-up has failed. Internal figures seen by the press reveal the reality. Since Starmer entered number 10, Labour has lost around 100,000 members. The party now sits at roughly 250,000 paying members in total. Let that sink in. Labour's membership has effectively been cut in half since Starmer won the leadership back in 2020, when the party had over 500,000 members. That's not a minor dip. That's not voter fatigue. That's an outright collapse. And the Conservatives? They were overtaken by Reform months ago. Reform UK surpassed Tory membership on Boxing Day last year, when the Conservatives were languishing at around 123,000 members. They are almost certainly even lower now. For context, the Green Party has grown under its new leadership but still trails behind on around 180,000 members. The Liberal Democrats sit at roughly 83,000. Jeremy Corbyn's new outfit struggles around the 50,000 mark. But the real story is the massive gap opening at the top. Reform UK has surged ahead while Labour has gone into reverse. This isn't just a spreadsheet problem. This is a political earthquake. Nigel Farage wasted no time celebrating. With visible satisfaction, he declared that Reform UK is now the largest political party in Britain and described it as a historic milestone. He went further, saying the era of two-party politics is over. Lee Anderson, never one for subtlety, summed it up bluntly: size matters. And the momentum doesn't stop there. Reform UK has led every single one of the last 150 voting intention polls. The party raised more money than all major parties combined last quarter. It has won more council by-elections since May than Labour, the Conservatives, and the Greens put together. This isn't noise. This is a shift. So how does the Prime Minister respond to this humiliation? Does Starmer accept responsibility? Does he reflect on why 100,000 members walked away? Of course not. Instead, he lashes out. He reignites his tired feud with Nigel Farage, branding him toxic, divisive, and disgraceful. The comments followed Farage's remarks about cultural change in Glasgow, which Starmer seized on as a distraction. Starmer told reporters that Farage only wants to divide communities, while insisting he himself is proud of Britain's diversity. The irony is suffocating. A Prime Minister presiding over the biggest membership collapse in Labour's history suddenly presenting himself as a unifier. It would be funny if it wasn't so revealing. Then came the desperate pivot. Starmer accused Farage of using culture wars to distract from alleged links to Russia. He went even further, branding Reform UK a pro-Putin party. This is the level of discourse we now get from a sitting Prime Minister when confronted with the fact that more people are willing to pay money to Reform UK than to Labour. This isn't leadership. This is panic. It's the political equivalent of a tantrum thrown by someone who's lost control of the room. And the desperation doesn't end with insults. In a move that stunned even hardened Westminster observers, the government delayed local elections in 4 key regions until 2028. Elections where candidates were already selected. Campaigns already underway. Votes due next year suddenly pushed back 4 years. Why? Because polling showed Reform UK was likely to win all 4. Critics say the government is running scared, and the evidence supports that claim. Nigel Farage accused the government of electoral manipulation, arguing that when the establishment can't win, it simply changes the rules. Starmer promised integrity. What he's delivered is avoidance. A government literally running from the ballot box. The message is clear. Labour is sinking, reform is rising, and Starmer's only response is delay, deflection, and denial. Labour's membership was once the backbone of the movement. 500,000 strong. Today, it's down to 250,000. That loss isn't just numbers. It's trust evaporating. It's supporters walking away because they feel deceived, ignored, and betrayed. This collapse isn't about people suddenly loving Farage's policies. It's about people rejecting Starmer's leadership. He calls others divisive, but it's his leadership that fractured his own party. The truth he can't escape is simple. The largest political party in Britain is now the one he calls the enemy. The final picture is unmistakable. Reform UK sits at the top. Labour is in freefall. The Conservatives are an afterthought. The two-party era is finished, not because of a manifesto, but because of a catastrophic failure of leadership. Tell us in the comments why you think Labour members abandoned ship. Like the video if you think Starmer is running scared. And this is where the story moves beyond headlines and membership counters into something far more serious. Because what we're witnessing right now isn't just a surge for Reform UK or a slump for Labour. It's a collapse in political trust that has been building for years and has finally reached breaking point. Labour's leadership wants to frame this as noise. A temporary protest. A Farage-driven media bubble that will burst once voters come to their senses. But that explanation falls apart when you look at the scale, the speed, and the consistency of what's happening. This isn't one demographic drifting away. It's not confined to one region or one grievance. It's happening everywhere, all at once. People aren't leaving Labour because they suddenly woke up as reform supporters. They are leaving because the party they joined no longer resembles the one they believed in. They feel talked down to, ignored, and managed rather than represented. Promises were made, red lines were drawn, and then quietly erased the moment power was secured. And voters notice that kind of betrayal. What makes this moment especially dangerous for Starmer is that he doesn't seem to have a response beyond denial and deflection. When faced with falling membership, he lashes out. When confronted with reform's rise, he insults. When polls look bad, elections get delayed. None of that fixes the underlying problem. It only confirms the perception of a leader who's lost control of the narrative and is now reacting rather than leading. Meanwhile, Reform UK doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be different. In a political environment where trust is at rock bottom, clarity beats complexity, certainty beats spin, and authenticity, even when rough around the edges, beats polished evasions every time. That's why reform's growth isn't slowing. It's accelerating. The real danger for Labour isn't that reform exists. It's that Labour no longer knows what it stands for. When a party loses its identity, it loses its shield. Every criticism lands harder. Every mistake cuts deeper. And every alternative, no matter how controversial, starts to look more appealing. This is how political earthquakes happen. Not overnight, but through thousands of small decisions, broken promises, and moments where voters quietly decide they are done waiting. Starmer may still occupy number 10, but authority isn't measured by buildings or titles. It's measured by belief. And that belief is draining away fast. The question now isn't whether British politics is changing. That's already settled. The question is whether Labour realises what's happening before it's too late, or whether this moment will be remembered as the point where the old order watched its own collapse and chose arrogance over action. One thing is certain. The numbers don't lie. And they are telling a story that Westminster desperately doesn't want you to hear. And if Labour thinks this storm will simply pass, history suggests otherwise. Political movements don't collapse because of one bad month or one controversial decision. They collapse when leaders mistake silence for consent and frustration for loyalty. That is exactly the trap Starmer has walked into. Inside Westminster, the mood is already shifting. MPs aren't panicking publicly yet, but behind closed doors the conversations have changed. The questions are no longer how do we manage reform, but what happens if this continues? Because once a party loses its grassroots, it loses its early warning system. It stops hearing the anger until it explodes at the ballot box. This is where leadership really gets tested. Not when things are easy. Not when the polls are kind. But when your own supporters begin to walk away and you're forced to choose between listening or doubling down. So far, Starmer has chosen doubling down. More discipline. More central control. More messaging from the top. Less democracy inside the party. And that approach has a long track record of failure. Every attack on reform only strengthens the perception that Labour is scared. Every delayed election looks less like strategy and more like avoidance. And every insult aimed at voters who've switched sides hardens the belief that Labour no longer respects them. What's unfolding now is a feedback loop. The more Labour dismisses the collapse in membership, the faster it accelerates. The more Starmer tries to silence dissent, the louder it becomes. This isn't just a political problem. It's a legitimacy crisis. Reform UK doesn't need to win over everyone. It only needs to keep absorbing those who feel politically homeless. And right now, that number is growing by the day. Former Labour members. Disillusioned Conservatives. Voters who don't trust any party, but are willing to take a risk on something new. This is how the two-party system ends. Not with a dramatic announcement. Not with a single landslide election. But with a slow transfer of belief, one membership card at a time. And by the time the establishment realizes what's happening, the ground beneath it has already shifted. Labour still has time to change course. But time is no longer on its side. Because politics, like trust, is brutally unforgiving. Once it's lost, it's almost impossible to win back. And that's the real story unfolding right now, not in speeches, not in press releases, but in the quiet decision of hundreds of thousands of people who've simply decided they've had enough.